Right, it's time for the paper review. Now let's get to see what the headlines are across papers in Nigeria. This morning we have Ayodele Adio. He's the managing editor of Gloom TV. He joins us now. He's one of our regulars. Ayodele, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Same. Glad to have you join us today. Let's begin with the New Telegraph this morning. And the big story here, $5.8 billion NEMA fraud. Osunbajo has questions to answer. Reps insist. Jonathan PDP knock VP on debt corruption. So the House of Reps is saying that the money removed from the Eurobond was done without the consent of the Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a damning report, particularly when you look at the fact that it also had to do with NEMA, which was supposed to provide relief materials or some sort of succor for the people in the northeastern part of the country that have been affected by, the Boko Haram crisis. And you think that, whether or not the vice president actually is directly fingered in this, the truth of the matter is that 5.8 billion cannot be accounted for. And that's the sad part of the story. And it means that the people of the Northeast are the losers in this at the end of the day. They did not get 5.8 billion. And it's quite sad. And we hope that the thorough investigation is done to find where those monies went to, who is directly responsible for the disbursement, and what went wrong in between. Because we just cannot have monies flittering away in our country every single time. And I hope that the National Assembly takes this investigation very, very seriously. And where need be, the FCC should also take it up, because I mean, we're talking about people's lives here. At the end of the day, that's the height of human wickedness. If the people who have been ravaged by terrorism.
On the other hand, I think the vice president, because when it comes to the perception around the president himself and his vice, they seem to be above board when it comes in the eyes of people. So when there's an indictment like this, I guess it behoves on the vice president to come out clear to say this and this and this is what I know about this. Otherwise, if he punctures the perception people have about him, it will go a long way to impact on the whole presidency.
I mean, exactly my thoughts too, because you expect that they come out all blazing, with facts and numbers to prove that such monies were not missing under their watch. But of course, they've not been able to refute those figures. And I hope that they do any time from now. You'd also recall that the Accountant General of the Federation, I think 2 months ago, also put out a very damning report of certain monies that were misappropriated or moved from one MDA to another, and yet nobody has still come out to dispute those facts. So
that's all right.
It's important that they clear these things once they come out, so that the so-called toga of purity that they have, doesn't begin to fade away.
The vice president himself said the funds were released to prevent a looming disaster as a result of the severe food shortages in the northeast region of Nigeria. The New Telegraph also features a picture here, displaced Nigerian children. You have here some children of the internally displaced persons queuing for food. Now, going by the size of the plates, unfortunately, we didn't see the food. We would have been able to justify the $5.8 billion. Arms purchase, Dasuki Sean's court trial over federal government's disobedience of bail order. A federal government moves to try ex-NSA in absentia. Other stories here. Oshoba to chair New Telegraph Awards night. Yahya Bello accepts, applauds recognition.
All right, the Nation newspaper is the next one now. How former governor blew 5.7 billion naira on politics by ex-aide, and he's revealing that money was withdrawn. That money was withdrawn in cash.
I'm wondering the kind of container that can
in cash
carry such huge amount of money.
5.7 billion. I can just only imagine how you have that kind of money in cash, somewhere where you just go and fetch,
Well, I think it's really not shocking, because if we just simply go by the Ekiti elections, that even observers internationally, we even had clips and reports. The BBC covered a few people running to go collect monies, 5,000, 7,000 naira. And you want to imagine, how much would have been circulating in Ekiti that day when you had to give away 7,000 naira to tens of thousands of people, how much that would have entailed.
At different locations?
At different locations.
And we understand not just one political party doing that.
Do you understand? So you wonder, first of all, how they even move these billions.
You're not saying the figure is actually 5.7 billion.
Well, I mean, it doesn't shock me any longer. You know, usually when you hear these kind of figures, you're supposed to take a pill, but it's becoming normal these days. It's becoming really normal.
Every Nigerian has a shock therapy now when it comes to, you know. All right, let's move on now. INEC to close case today in Ekiti governorship poll dispute. Okay, and Nigeria's oil output to hit 1.8 million barrels per day. Okay, Nigerians were thinking that it has gone, it's been up around 2.2 million barrels per day.
That's the funniest part of our budgetary planning. Because I can't think of the last time where we actually hit the production of 2.2 million barrels of oil per day. Yet each time we're planning budgets, we use the 2.2
exactly,
to 2 million.
Benchmark.
And it's funny because we always range between 1.6 and 1.8 million barrels of oil. So.
All right. December, deadline for minimum wage. This is from the labor, organized labor. Now, the point there is, it seems like we're still going to see another showdown between organized labor and government. Now that the governors are saying we want the review, if you want us to pay 30,000, there has to be a review of the revenue sharing formula, and that is a legal procedure. That's going to take a very long process to have it reviewed, if at all it has to be reviewed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to brace up for what will be an interesting showdown in December, because the Labour do not look like they want to shift any grounds. And the government, who the books are in their custody, know the reality of the situation, know that our purse is bleeding, and know they cannot afford it. So you're looking at a situation where there's going to be two elephants fighting, and the grasses definitely would suffer.
All right. Lagos okays hijab on school uniforms. I guess this is quite interesting when it comes to the freedom. Anybody can, especially in Lagos. Lagos is a very free. It's
Given
one of
the precedents, the state government went to court on these issues.
The case is still ultimately the case is still in the Supreme Court.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, because for me it doesn't change anything how you dress into the classroom to get an education. At the end of the day, what you want is an education, not how the person looks. You know, at the end of the day, the only place I have a problem with is if you have to force people who naturally do not want to, maybe private institution that feels they have their own kind of, and then you want to force it up, then maybe that might be a little bit of a problem. But I mean, generally, if you're talking public schools or whatever, I mean, everybody, for me, has the right, because it's a circular state at the end of the day. So
everybody has the right to dress
just
the way you want.
Just the way you want.
Just get the education.
Yeah, get the education.
Get the
That's what is
education,
important. Exactly.
Daily Sun is next. A new minimum wage controversy. Again, Labour draws a battle line, gives federal government December deadline on payment of 30,000 naira salary, issues one strike notice. We talked about that earlier. Dasuki refuses to appear in court, complains of federal government's disobedience to judges' orders. It's sad that we're still talking about this.
Oh yes, I mean, 2-3 years down the line, 2 years plus down the line, and court orders haven't been obeyed. Leaves a sour taste in the mouth for some of us who believe in constitutional democracy, where the rule of law has to take front seat. Really, because it doesn't matter how you feel about the person. You might have all the facts, which I believe that the government on its own side are seeing certain facts, you know, that they cannot expose to people, and they feel hurt by it. I can understand, but the law is the law. You know, what you need to do is to put up an excellent legal team to prosecute the case properly in court and ensure that you get judgment. Otherwise, you know, you'll be shooting yourself on the foot, because you're laying a precedent.
Especially at this time when Nigeria, when it comes to human rights record, Nigeria has not been faring excellently well.
Exactly.
In fact, Nigeria has not even, right from the past decades, Nigeria has not really fared well when it comes to human rights record.
I mean, you know the famous Al Capone, who was a gangster and murderer in New York. When the prosecutors couldn't pin him down, you know, for the most ignominious, you know, evils that he had done in the public, the only ways they could pin him down was through tax. evasion, and he went to jail on the list of things that he likely expected, and he went to jail because of evading tax. You know, so that's why I say you need to put up an excellent prosecution team who will look at the facts, who will work round the clock to look for where to pin him down on.
Perhaps
and then take the case to court.
Perhaps the dispensation of human rights is unique in this part of the world.
Well,
Recall
I mean,
that,
for
the president
me,
said
the
national
president is
security.
always important. You want to you know, because if the presidency obeys court orders, who are you?
Exactly.
not to obey
That's
court
the biggest
orders.
question.
So
If the government
obeys,
obeys the court orders and court pronouncements, then anybody will certainly fall in line.
Exactly. So that's the kind of
The
presidency
presidency believes that national security supersedes the rule of law.
What-
And we need to understand
what
the
is
context
national
of that.
security?
That's a scholarly
What-
argument.
That's a discussion for another day.
Exactly.
To other stories here on the front page of the Daily Sun, Senate, Saraki must go, Shumole says Senate President's leadership unacceptable. Are we still on this matter?
From who, actually?
That's the national chairman of
Okay.
the
Oh,
All
he
Progressives
still wants
Congress.
Saraki to... Well,
Assembly
I
breaks into
think Mr. Chairman has enough on his plate to handle as we speak.
Well, politics will take any dimension, I must tell you.
18 lawmakers impeach Speaker as clerk. 10 legislators dismiss action. It's another drama yet again at our houses of assembly. And that's it on the Daily Sun.
All right, the Vanguard newspaper is my last one here right now. We're vetting Ganduje's bribe videos. This is credited to the president and adds that we'll take action if governor is found guilty. Well, immunity covers him anyway.
Oh, yes.
So let's see how that will play out. But let's wait and see. Kano House bows to pressure, suspends probe. Okay, this is where someone would say we have too many powerful people, you know, because the House of Assembly is an institution. Third, the other arm of government where they have the right to carry out a probe, and if they're carrying out a probe and there are political pressure from whoever to say, okay, suspend the probe, okay, it tells you how interesting the country may be.
I don't think there are not as much powerful people as there are enough people who are willing to step up to the plate and put themselves out to be counted. You know, in countries where we like to even draw examples from, the difference usually is that you have tough men who lead this institution who refuse to be bent, you know, at the expense of their job. So if you have to fire me, but I'm going to follow the books and I'm going to follow the law. And so you need more people like that who are going to damn the consequences and do politics by the books and do what needs to be done, even if it's going to cost them their job.
The independence of this arm of government is also questionable because the decision to, this paper says the bow to pressure, the judiciary, I think someone went to court and they were asked to maintain status quo. And so it's still being debated whether the court has the right to stop the House, you know, and it goes on and on like that, like a cycle.
Exactly. It seems to be a legal impasse. But what you'd expect is, first of all, the State House of Assembly has certain rights of investigation. They have the right to investigate. And actually, you could stop them from summoning whoever you want to summon, but I do not think that you have the powers to stop them from doing their constitutional, you know, from investigating the process and gathering evidence.
We wait to see how things will turn out in Kano. All right, the Q4 of 2018, rising inflation threatens equities outlook. The inflation rate now is about 11.28%, thereabout, and from the past few months, it seemed to be rising gradually. Gradually.
And that's the biggest enemy in our economy, the rising rate of inflation, because it also has a rippling effect on the cost of funds, where, you know, manufacturers and other businesses have to borrow monies, you know, at higher rates. It has an effect on the cost of goods. It also has an effect, of course, on the value of money, because what happens is your purchasing power is grossly dwindled over time.
You know, sometimes you wonder which indices really is going to work for economy. 2 months ago, oil was selling at over $80 per barrel, the highest in 4 years. Now we're complaining that global oil prices dropping, and then you really wonder which of these indices should favor us.
For us, we're in a peculiar situation because while the price of crude goes up in the international market that you're supposed to be celebrating, what it actually means again is that you're going to be paying, one, more in importing this crude.
Exactly.
So two, you're going to be paying more in subsidy.
Exactly.
Three, and most importantly, is that you're going to be substituting more naira for those dollars, which will consequently fuel inflation
So
in your economy.
at the end of the day, there's nothing really to celebrate. All right, let's just do a run through this. Dasuki refuses to appear in court, alleges partisan rule of law, accuses Buhari of high-handedness. We've talked about that. Lagos State government okays use of hijab in public schools, and that's as a way of maintaining status quo until the Supreme Court comes up with the final pronouncement on that. NEMA probe, Osinbajo has questions to answer. Reps insist. And Ondo Assembly, why we moved against Speaker Deputy by 18 lawmakers? Well, they said 2 out of the 18 came out to say that their signatures were forged. Okay. It will be bad to stop minimum wage implementation. Labour is warning federal government. And ASU wants federal government to negotiate with union to end strike. Well, that's the Vanguard newspaper.
And we have one more paper here, the last but not the least, the Punch newspaper. There's a story, restructuring, Buhari Osinbajo deceitful, say Afenifere Haneze. And it also features a front page picture showing children at the internally displaced persons camp queuing for food. This picture has enlarged the size of the bowls. But it's really sad to see that.
It's a sad situation. It's not funny. But
children
but the point there
going
is,
through this challenge.
what we often say is let us assume, let's just create a scenario where these children are not in developing countries. Is this how
they'll be treated?
They'll be treated, where they have to queue for food and so on.
Well, I mean, you would have to set the standard because it's your citizen, it's your country. Sometimes I shudder to think that it looks like we live in two different countries. There are people who live from Abuja beyond down to Lagos, and then there are people who live from outside Abuja down north. When you see these pictures, I don't see a sense of urgency. I don't see that pain that the fellow citizen feels, that you have hundreds of thousands of young children who don't have food to eat every day. You have 1.6 million internally displaced people who don't have houses, who don't have a shelter, who don't have a means of income. You have millions of out-of-school kids roaming around the streets in the country, people who are offended by the country and the state, who feel left behind. I do not see a sense of urgency to fix this problem. And that, for me, quite frankly, makes me go to bed with a heavy chest, because we're preparing the beds for chaos tomorrow if we do not fix these things. Because these people that you see, these kids you see, that you have given nothing and shown no love and no empathy, you don't expect that from them.
You also begin to think about the implication of this on even the Boko Haram.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be ready-made materials for recruitment if there has to be. Adele Adio, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So we will keep you for the next discussion, however. So.